changed to 380 or something.
Yeah, they never, and just to be clear, Camus really didn't come to us with anything other than, we have a problem, and one of the ways that we're looking at resolving the problem is we may be coming to you to talk about service levels and that type of stuff. I initiated the discussion of, well, what if we have these dollars, what if we made some of them available, can you leave us whole? Not meaning to make it sound like, I don't care what you do out in East County, I don't care what you do in Camas, but I don't care what you do in those. I can only try and do something from this side.
The initial problem I have is that we have 600,000, and they in fact know that. Next year, times are just a wee bit tougher, and now they need 250,000. So now we've coughed up $400,000 of the 600, and it's almost gone.
Yeah.
So that concerns me that we have, what's the next ask for? Do you know what they fund their fire department out of their budget? Now, I know that ours is $1.27.
What the EMS levy is about $1.48.
And fire department specific, I was told they fund theirs at about 60 cents a thousand. A remarkable difference in comparison to where we're at. And so now I think if that were a true statement, and I'm asking the question because I don't know that to be fact, but if they're only funding their fire department, and we already have figured out they're supplementing their fire department by their EMS budget, if that's the case, then if they supplemented it like, and I'll say the rest of the world does, at $1.25 a thousand, they wouldn't be supplementing with EMS funds, which we have to supplement.
Right. Yeah, and I don't know what their true number is and how they value between the two of them. I've got to believe that your statement is correct, though, and that there is some obscuring of the line in there, because certainly when they're hiring firefighter paramedics, and, you know, I think Chief Leon's discussion on that makes sense. How many you need, I don't know. But as he puts it, you know, he can't necessarily put a firefighter on a ALS ambulance and send it out, but he can put a paramedic onto a fire truck and send it out. So they had to hire proportionally more firefighter paramedics than they did just paramedics or just firefighters. So incrementally, I'm sure when you look at that side and the fact that most of their calls for the entire fire department itself are medical, yeah, I gotta believe that there's an inordinate proportion of that firefighter that's being tagged to the EMS system than it is the other direction.
I have a concern about the 600,000. We got that through the EMS levy, and our call volume continues to climb every year as well. But we have an aging crew, and if we decided, you decided, and it came back in a budget proposal, we've already given away the 600,000 that we've made. In essence, we could have hired some more employees. Now where do we find that money to fund those people? I'd rather fund ourselves before I fund Camas.
Yeah.
Why would they pull that ambulance out of here when they have virtually no cost to them? They're gonna pay those firefighter paramedics and fund the fuel for that ambulance, whether they're parked in Washougal or whether they're parked in Camas. So they don't have any costs out here. In fact, what they do when they move that ambulance back to Camas is they start stacking people in because their station's not a large station. They end up with a bunch of personnel, which they relieve that pressure, if you will, when they moved out, you know, those guys. The other thing is if they move that ambulance back to Camas, has there been any indication they're gonna lay paramedics off? Because I hadn't heard that at all. And so if they don't get this 150 out of $1 million piece of the pie, they're gonna lay people off?
I don't know at what point I guess the correct thing to say is I don't know at what point they stop laying people off. They're already laying people off.
Right.
Even without this,
right.
They're going in and doing some. One of the issues that they were dealing with is trying to figure out what you do with another 12 hours of a crew when you're running 24-hour crews and shifts. So if they're out here for 12 and then in their 12, does that mean that somebody that's in there for 24 got bumped by 12 and what does all that mean? So, I don't know at what point how far they're prepared to go in order to try and stabilize this thing and
Well,
keep it
no
from going
question
into
that
the
if
red.
you ask Eckfer or Washougal, there's many, many benefits to having them parked at 39th Street. But that being said, it's almost their busiest station right now. It's fast approaching their busiest response station. And I just don't see them leaving out here when they have that ability to make it quicker, because they're also fined within the EMS system by not reaching their 90% within, they have numbers.
Right.
Urban is 5-minute response time 90% of the time. Suburban is a little different, and rural is much different. But this helps them meet those requirements and
Absolutely.
we're providing that shelter for them.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Rod, again, I didn't ask the question. If they're looking at going to peak 12 hours here, are they also looking at peak 12 hours at another station and somewhere else to where they're basically at some point, and do all those hours line up? Is the peak 12 hours in Washougal the same as the peak 12 hours is up in Grass Valley? I don't know. But my impression was that what they were looking at was consolidating those crews during those off-peak 12 hours back to the central station and just dispatching out of there. However many there may be, 2, 4, 6, 8.
Well, the biggest
We
heartburn
can
that
certainly
I'm
ask
having
those
right
questions,
now is
though.
that 60 cents a thousand and how they're funding their organization and depending on others to pick it up. And quite honestly, if you
How about the
remember,
other side?
when we started talking about the consolidation issue, we actually, within a couple of weeks, had a meeting at Clark County to talk about a county regional fire authority. And I made the comment to you then, and I'll make it again. If we're here to bail out Camus's budget, I have a real heartburn over it. If we're gonna join all the departments in Clark County to bail out Vancouver's budget woes, I don't wanna be a part of that either. That being said, I recognize, I work with these guys, I know that they're good, I know that they respond in a timely fashion. If this was a one-time shot in the arm, but it doesn't look it.
I wouldn't expect it to be. When I asked the question and made the information available about going into the budget and to council for it, I certainly am not believing it's gonna be a one-time deal. Not unless in 2011, everybody puts their heads together and comes up with something that nobody has seen yet that says, oh, we can save $500,000 a year doing this or that.
David or Jennifer, if we got to the $600,000 number, how do we get those numbers? Do they put money back into that 600,000 every year? Next year we'll have 685,000?
Not necessarily. It's a function of where assessed value comes in and what the rate is and what the levy was set at. And, those inclines in AV is what set this up. We can't say that that's going to happen again. So I think the conservative approach would be to assume that this is it for that, and that we'll get what we levy in the future. Be capped for a little while and then be able to advance. But I think the mayor's hit it on the head. Camas has a problem, Washougal has a problem, Eckfer has a problem, District 5, Vancouver, Clark County, 11, everyone has a problem in terms of revenue. And the demand